I did a DNA test on my first child after my wife got pregnant with our second child, because I've had a vasectomy and confirmed that I'm still sterile, and I found out I don't have any biological children and she's been cheating on me this entire time. Posted by you/Throra2 unsure. We spent 2 years together in college and got married the fall after we graduated. We spent 2 years exploring our relationship and finally settled down, ready to raise a family. She got off birth control and her libido took off, but it took 3 years for us to get pregnant. Eventually, we had a beautiful girl. After a couple of months, my wife got back on birth control and had a hard time with it. Her doctor switched her medications several times, but she experienced bad side effects with each one. We talked about it and were unsure if we wanted another child. Since it was easier for me to get a vasectomy reversed later if we decided to have more children, I had the operation. That was 3 years ago. After coming off birth control, my wife felt better, and Segs has been worry-free since we could no longer get pregnant. We actually have Segs more now than we did in college. Then, 3 weeks ago, my wife was late for her period, which isn't that unusual for her. I noticed she had some tenderness in her chest and started showing what seemed like signs of morning sickness. I know there have been cases of nature reversing vasectomies, so I went to the doctor and had my sperm count checked. The verdict was that I'm still sterile, but I didn't tell my wife. My wife eventually went to her doctor and confirmed she was pregnant. She asked me to go to my doctor to get tested. I didn't go right away because I was literally sick from the stress of the situation. I had all sorts of sick scenarios going through my head. In the end, I got retested and took my daughter in for a DNA test. I got both test results back today and got violently ill after reading them. Yes, I am sterile, and no, my daughter isn't mine. When my wife got home, I showed her my test, and she denied any wrongdoing, claiming there was a problem with the test. I showed her the test from last week, and she broke down crying. I finally got her to tell me who she had slept with and that it only happened once, that the condom must have failed. I made her tell me the story 3 times, and each time I asked her if that was the whole truth and if there was anything else she needed to tell me because another lie would mean we were through. She said that was the only time and that she had never done anything like that before. I told her how much this hurt me and asked how she could do this to our family and if it was worth it. I asked if she wanted a divorce, and she pleaded with me to forgive her and put this behind us. I said I couldn't raise someone else's child and asked if she would be willing to terminate the pregnancy in order to stay together. She cried the rest of the night, but when we went to bed, she said she would do whatever it took to save our marriage. I never brought up the DNA test. I will contact a lawyer next week to see what my options are regarding child support for our first child. If she had come clean about the father of our first child, I could have swallowed my pride and tried to work to forgive her, but she thought she was in the clear and didn't need to confess to anything else. There's no telling what I'll never know. Top/relevant comments. Additional info from OP. Depending on my lawyer's advice, I plan to tell my mom and dad about the situation ASAP before my brother lets it slip. Editor's note, OP mentioned in another comment that he broke down and told his brother, who is the only one that knows so far. If my wife doesn't tell her family about the affair, I will if we go over there for Christmas. I may reveal a copy of the DNA test then as well. I know from friends who have gone through divorces that moving out is a bad idea for a legal claim to the house. Again, it depends on what legal advice I get tomorrow, but my wife doesn't have anyone nearby she could move in with, and her moving back home would mean not being able to keep her job. Some people here and a couple of friends have said I shouldn't turn my back on her/our daughter and that it's not her fault. But she has her mom's green eyes and blonde hair, and I know that when I look at her, it would be like rubbing salt in an open wound. A healthy relationship with her going forward isn't likely. A few weeks ago, I was hurt but kind of numb. Now I can feel the resentment, anger, and maybe even hate starting to fester more and more each day. I think a check-in with my doctor may be in order to see if he can refer me to a therapist or counselor. Commenter. Quick question, is the affair partner married or in a relationship? Is it possible that they're the father of both children? If they are married, then she needs to contact the affair partner's wife. OP's response. The affair partner is married but didn't live in our state when the first child was born. I have no evidence that she's telling the truth about who her affair partner actually is, so telling his wife without proof seems unfair if my wife is lying. OP adds an edit to his post. My lawyer is awesome. She had me bring in a bunch of paperwork, bank statements, and my medical and DNA results, and had me tell her my story. Her assistant sat in with us and took notes while my lawyer went through my documents. After I finished, she asked a few questions and spelled out my options. I live in an at-fault state, which is good and bad, good in that it gives us leverage, bad in that it takes longer and is much more expensive. In the case of the first child, if my wife agrees to sign the papers, my liability for child support is an easy fix. If she doesn't agree, then a court-ordered DNA test and a judgment from the court can remove me without my wife's consent. Either way, I will most likely not have to pay child support. One way is just more expensive than the other. Since my wife has a good job and earns close to what I do, she didn't think the judge would award her any alimony. All of that, plus dividing up property and other things, can be negotiated before a judge gets involved. The bad news was that due to the holidays, they couldn't have the papers ready before Christmas, but definitely would before the end of the year. She advised me to say nothing until she got served. She gave me a list of things to do before and after Christmas, before they served my wife. One thing they did point out was that since we were actively trying to have a baby, there was a possibility that my wife didn't know that the child wasn't mine. My wife has an appointment with her OB tomorrow. Commenter 2. What was her response? Is she going through with the termination? Ops response. I believe so. She has an appointment with her OB tomorrow. Commenter 2. I hope she's not making the decision based on your suggestions about a possible reconciliation. She should be making an informed choice. It would be terrible if you implied that there was a chance to work things out if she got a termination, while knowing full well that you never intend to stay with her. Ops response. No, she has no desire to carry this baby to term. She told me this morning before I left for work that it was best for everyone involved if she had the procedure done. Evidently, her affair partner knows and wants her to terminate even more than I do. Commenter 3. The fact that she is still in contact with the affair partner is not good. Ops response. His son goes to the same daycare as the daughter, so they run into each other during drop-off and pick-up sometimes. I'm picking up the daughter today. I was thinking about asking him if he's told his wife yet. Additional info from Op. I went by the daycare to pick up the daughter and was hoping to have a word with the affair partner. As luck would have it, his wife was picking up their son, and we were able to have a conversation. I told her that her husband would be relieved that my wife had terminated their pregnancy. She grew quite upset, and I gave her my business card and said my wife was planning on calling her and explaining everything. I got home and told my wife I had scheduled a meeting with a marriage counselor for after the first of the year, which perked her mood up a bit. She started talking about how happy she was that I was making an effort to move past this. I didn't tell her that the session was required by the court because of a divorce involving a minor child. Then my phone rang. It was the affair partner's wife. I put it on speaker, sat next to my wife, and said it was for her. It didn't start out well and went downhill fast. My wife's story contradicted itself a couple of times, and that was not missed by the affair partner's wife. She maintained it was just segs and kind of threw the affair partner under the bus a little toward the end. There was a lot of name-calling from the affair partner's wife and crying on both ends of the phone. After she hung up, my wife got mad and asked why I had talked to her. I said that telling his wife about the affair was part of our deal, and I just stumbled on a chance to set that up at the daycare. I fixed myself a drink and came back into the living room to see her texting on her phone. I got close enough to see what she was typing before she realized I was there. I told her that if we were going to get past this, she would have to go no contact with him and ask to see her phone. She agreed not to contact him again but said her phone was private, so I dropped it. I asked if she had had a chance to tell her family about all of this yet, and she said no. I just let it go at that. Update 12 days later. So I met my sister at my house, and we started moving my stuff to her house while the divorce goes through, or at least until my soon-to-be ex-wife leaves and I get possession of the house. We took 4 carloads to her house and came back for the rest. My sister felt it was important for her to be there for support and as a witness. I also moved the nanny cam into the living room so it could record everything to the cloud. At about 10:45 a.m., I got a text from the lawyer saying she had been served. I sent her an email saying that I was at the house when she was ready to talk. A couple of minutes later, I got a text from my wife saying, "Why? Blah blah blah." So I resent the first text and waited for her to get home. She sent several texts and voicemails. They didn't mention anything about cheating, just how she thought we were working this out and that she thought we would sit down and have a conversation before proceeding with a divorce. Playing the family card and how this would devastate the child and our families. How she feels betrayed, that was a good one. She was still sharing her location, and it took her 20 minutes before she left work. She then stopped at a nearby Walgreens for a few minutes. The purpose of the stop at Walgreens became clear as a police car pulled in behind her in the driveway. According to the officers, she got the police there because she said she was afraid and that we had guns in the house. I showed the officers my empty gun safe and said that I had removed them to another secure location. We went back to the living room, and I showed my wife the paternity test that I had done, which showed her daughter was not mine. Her response was denial and disbelief, which appeared genuine. She broke down and cried for about 10 minutes. I told her this was the final straw and why I wanted the divorce. At about that time, the police officers reminded me to keep it civil and made their exit after I told them I was leaving soon to stay at my sister's house. When I asked who the child's father was, she claimed she didn't know. I asked if there were that many guys she was sleeping with or if she just didn't know his name. I asked how many times she had cheated on me between pregnancies, to which she said it was just the 2 of them. I told her that I had said earlier that if she didn't tell the whole truth, I was done. I reminded her I also told her that I couldn't/wouldn't raise someone else's child and that she had better figure out who the real father was because I wasn't paying child support for someone else's baby. She wanted to know what we were going to tell our daughter, and I said that was up to her because this was her mess, and I wasn't taking the blame or cleaning it up for her. I drafted a couple of emails last week, one for our friends and family with copies of all the test results and reasons why I was asking for a divorce, the other for my wife with copies of the same tests along with what I knew and things I had told her previously. I had to run it through my lawyer and make a couple of edits before she signed off on it. I sent copies to all our friends and relatives when she pulled into the driveway this afternoon. Most of the feedback has been one-sided and very colorful. In the end, I told her if she had been truthful, we might have been able to work things out. But I couldn't trust a lying serial cheater, and I told her if she had gotten her tubes tied instead of me getting a vasectomy, she might have gotten away with it. I told her she needed to get a lawyer so we could move forward and start to heal. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. I understand your need to end the marriage and disassociate yourself from the child. Just be ready for people to come down hard on you because you're leaving the kid. I get it, but it isn't their business. If you're sure you can't be a good father to the child, then leaving is the best choice. I'm sorry for the child, but her cheating mother is to blame, not you. Good luck. Ops response. I could never be the kind of father she needs. She is a carbon copy of my ex-wife. And every time I look at her, it reminds me of her mother and what she did to me. I'll miss her, but this is something I don't think I'll get over. Plus, I would have to see my ex, and that wouldn't be a good thing either. Commenter 2. I agree with you and I'm totally on your side, but I do find it a bit odd that you don't seem too emotionally conflicted about writing off the child you believed was yours for 4/5 years. The child who only knows you as her father and can't understand that her mother is a cheater. My heart breaks for the child. Does your state have assumed paternity? Your lawyer will have to combat that. She made you get a vasectomy so you wouldn't have any biological children with anyone else. That's cruel and pretty thought out. Ops response. Does your state have assumed paternity? No. And my lawyer said even if my wife fights it, based on the DNA, I can have my paternal rights and responsibilities terminated and petition to have my name removed from the birth certificate. We will file a no-fault petition if she agrees. If she fights it, we can file an at-fault petition, which will affect her settlement since we live in an at-fault state. If she has an ethical lawyer, he will recommend the no-fault option. I was devastated and got physically ill when I read the DNA report. I didn't make this decision lightly. There are a lot of emotions in play here, resentment, betrayal, and who knows what else under the surface. I'm not perfect, and I know trying to remain a parent or be in her life is probably not in her best interest or mine right now. Add in the fact that I would have to co-parent with my ex, it's a recipe for disaster. The trauma that would cause her is far greater than if I exit stage left now and let her get on with her life. Commenter 3. Thank you. Thank you for respecting yourself. Your ex-wife is one of the worst human beings, making you believe you're the father and just taking it away that easily. Don't believe anything she says. She was ready to let you raise someone else's children forever. You handled it perfectly. Go full no contact and don't be a nice guy. She committed 2 of the worst betrayals against you. It's a good thing you handled family and friends. Every step you took is what I advise everyone else in this sub to do. Good luck. Ops response. Her reaction to the paternity test seemed credible. I think it's possible she truly believed she was mine. The DNA wasn't even close to a match, so it was pretty clear I'm not the father. But yeah, everything else she says is probably a lie. Commenter 4. What kind of response did your friends and family give, also your mother-in-law and father-in-law? Everyone was probably shocked. Hope your close friends tried to help you out. What did your wife do after she learned the truth? Did she message you back or try to say that you should raise the child? After all, you did your best. Now you need to heal and find yourself a wife who is loyal and loves you. Hard times are going to come, but be sure, you're going to get through it. Good luck, buddy. Ops response. So far, there has been shock and disgust from most. The paternity test is what hits hardest for most of them. A couple of people weren't surprised about the cheating part, even though they never said anything before. It's surprising that none of her close girlfriends have jumped to her defense. My father-in-law sent me a sad email trying to take the blame for not raising her right. He wished me well and said he would pray for me. The ex-wife messaged me a couple of times about talking it out. I think she still wants to save the relationship. I haven't responded to any of them, and she stopped trying to reach out a couple of hours ago. Commenter 5. You handled that very well. I'm surprised she went to the police right away. Sometimes this is done as an end run to get sole occupancy of the home during the divorce process. To me, that's a warning sign that the divorce may be contested. When my parents split up, my dad's lawyer made him rewrite his will. You might want to do that, just in case. Ops response. I'm surprised she went to the police right away. Unless she had someone at work giving her advice on divorce tactics. My lawyer gave me a pretty comprehensive list of things to do, Moving the firearms was on the list. It was a lengthy list. Since we're living in an at-fault state, and with the evidence we have, if she contests the divorce, it will not go in her favor. Op adds an edit to his post. We had our second meeting with the lawyers today, and we signed off on almost everything except the house. We're still waiting for an appraisal to come back to figure out the split. Motions were filed today, and a court-ordered paternity test was scheduled for all three of us. Since my soon-to-be ex-wife didn't fight me on anything, we filed a no-fault divorce petition. If everything goes right, I get the house back on February 15th, and the divorce will be final on April 5th. The lawyers did a better job keeping us separated and limiting the conversation between the two of us. I was a little worried when she came in, pale and with no energy to speak of. I couldn't tell if it was lack of sleep or maybe over-medication. She just stared out the windows as the lawyers read everything to us before we signed some of the papers. Walking out felt like I had shed a giant weight from around my neck. HR got me signed up for therapy tomorrow. My boss had put a bottle of champagne on my desk and offered me some time off if I needed it, but I told him I was excited to get back to work. Comment updates 1 to 2 months later. Commenter: how are you doing? Can you give us an update? Ops response: my ex got her share of the equity on the house and has already moved into her new apartment, and I move back in tomorrow. The court-ordered DNA test came back, and the judge has approved the motions to terminate my parental rights and obligations. The divorce won't be final until April, but for all intents and purposes, I'm free. The only contact I have with my ex is through messages via my lawyer or meetings at the lawyer's office with her present. I've blocked my ex and some of her family and friends. She has said she wants to sit down and talk at some point, but my lawyer said it should wait until after the divorce is final. I had dinner with the affair partner's wife again, as we keep each other up to date on our ex-spouses. I almost feel sorry for him. She got him fired and is determined to drag out the divorce and inflict as much pain as possible. Commenter 2: how did she get him fired? Ops response: he worked for her family's business. She told her dad and uncle, who ran the business, what he did. She didn't have to ask twice. They took his laptop, company phone, credit card, and company car the next morning with no notice. All he got was a cardboard box with his personal stuff and was escorted out. All in about 15 minutes. Commenter 3: you had dinner with her twice. I get the impression that you like her. You could have easily caught up over the phone. Sometimes both betrayed spouses become support systems for each other. It's not uncommon for both betrayed spouses to really like each other and for more to develop, or am I reading into this too much? Ops response: comrades in arms, so to speak. We've been able to fill in the holes of what we know about our spouses' affairs. And we both have a macabre interest in the fate of our exes and their affair partners. Commenter 4: did you ever learn the identity of the father of the 4-year-old? And or the circumstances of how she ended up getting impregnated by another man? Ops response: she told me his name. I remember meeting him on a lake trip. That was the only time I remember seeing him. I don't know if she has contacted him or done a paternity test or not. I didn't ask for any details. I really don't care at this point, and I'm not sure I would believe anything she told me anyway. Commenter 4: it's not the same man as the recent affair partner? Ops response: no, the guy who fathered her daughter. We met him over 4 years ago. The recent affair partner she had only known for a short time. They're from different parts of the country as well. Second update 1 year later. So throughout and after my divorce, I have kept in contact with Sharon, the other betrayed spouse, as we had shared details about our ex's affair, and both of us were interested in the consequences our spouses ended up suffering. We provided each other moral support. We talk on the phone and usually have dinner once or twice a month to catch up. Last month, Sharon said that one of her friends was getting married and had invited her to the wedding. Her ex, Stan, was also invited, as he was a friend of the groom. Her invitation included A+1, and she pitched the idea of me going with her, both as moral support and as a dig at her ex, Stan. It was a weekend event, and we would share a room with double beds, strictly platonic. The idea amused me, so I agreed. We flew in the day before the wedding and had dinner with several of Sharon's friends. I was introduced as her friend, with no mention of our history or the divorce. We didn't run into Stan until right before the ceremony, as they escorted us to the bride's side while Stan was seated on the groom's side. Needless to say, he was less than pleased and kept looking over at us, something Sharon was well aware of. At the reception, we were seated with some of Sharon's friends from the night before, and we picked up where we left off. Everyone was quite engaged. Stan was seated at a table across the room from us but in clear view. We danced quite a bit together and probably drank more than we should have. There was a brief confrontation between Stan and Sharon, but her friends diffused it quickly and spirited Sharon away. At the hotel after the reception, we had drinks with 2 other couples. There were several comments about Stan shooting daggers at us all night, and a few about how cute a couple we made, along with questions about whether we were serious or not. We laughed it off and said we were just friends. I had to support Sharon on the way to the room and had my arm around her. On the cramped elevator ride, we were standing quite close. When we got to the room, there was a tense moment, and we kissed. Good judgment lost out to the alcohol, and we ended up sleeping together. The next morning, we never spoke much about the elephant in the room as we rushed to catch our flight home. We did run into Stan as we were checking out, and he made a snide remark and walked off. Once we were on the plane, we talked about what happened. Neither of us was sorry, but we questioned the wisdom of the timing. We both agreed we needed some time to process what happened and agreed to have dinner next week and talk about it then. I know neither of us has tried to date since our divorces. I haven't been in the right headspace to even flirt, much less date. I have a session already scheduled with my therapist, where I will bring this up. But we did have a great weekend at the wedding.